Hey, friends.
Hey, everybody.
We are sitting here enjoying a warm evening on our front porch and celebrating our 23rd wedding anniversary, which is today.
Yep. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Tina made that post earlier, and we've just been getting a lot of questions from people that we've known just in the last few years about our crazy wedding that most folks don't even know that happens. So she got this wild idea to get on here and tell the world about it. So.
Well, yeah, isn't that what Facebook is for? I see so many times on Facebook, you see these gloom and doom stories or these stories about, people just venting all the negative stuff. And I thought, well, let's use Facebook for positive. Let's tell our story and let's have it on record because, once you tell your story on Facebook, it's on the live video, it becomes a video. Then you can save it to YouTube, and then now we'll have a record for it for our kids and hopefully one day our grandkids.
Yep.
So look at all the hearts. Those must be Natalie. It's kind of funny. Paul and I decided to have a destination wedding in September of 1995.
In St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. And obviously it's hurricane season, and Hurricane Marilyn, we had seen on the weather before we left, the Hurricane Marilyn was south of...
It was Tropical Storm Marilyn.
Yeah, Tropical Storm Marilyn at that time. And it was south, and it was heading due west, so it wasn't supposed to hit the Virgin Islands. So we're like, no big deal, let's just go.
That's right. Yeah, we used to be scuba divers before we had kids. So
yes.
We had already been to the Virgin Islands a couple of times that year just on dive trips.
Yep.
And there was like Tropical Storm Lewis that hit like right before. So that was the L named storm. And then the Tropical Storm Marilyn was the M named storm. So it was the very next month, the very next storm that was coming. And we were like, we just went through Tropical Storm Lewis a month ago. So this will be fun.
Yeah, that would be no big deal. So I guess we flew out on the 15th of September.
Yes, it was a Thursday.
So as we're landing, we land in St. Thomas, and the stewardess is like, you guys have to hurry up and get off. And we're like, what do you mean hurry up and get off the plane? And she said, well, Hurricane Marilyn stalled at sea, built up strength, and is heading straight here. And I was like, you mean taking the plane away? And she said, yeah, when you guys get off, we're taking all the planes and taking them back to Atlanta. And I was like, well, we're staying on the plane. I'm not getting off the plane if you're going back to Atlanta because the storm's coming. We'll just stay right here in our seats and go back to Atlanta. And she said, well, you can't do that. You have to get off. And if you don't get off, we'll have somebody take you off. So we got off.
Yeah. And we had one of my best friends in my whole life, and she happens to be my cousin, like a sister, Sonia Hardy, and her husband Jim with us as our only family that went with us on this trip. And so they had left their daughter Braylon behind. I think it was the first time they'd ever left Braylon behind as like with, to go out of town and
so.
out of the country to go on an airplane. So she was all nervous that, she was leaving her baby. So anyway, Jim, he's like, we got this. So the tropical storm had built up to a Category 1 hurricane. So we get out of the plane. We get our rental car. We got a red Jeep.
Yep.
Red two-door Jeep, what, a Renegade or something
Wrangler.
like that? Wrangler, Jeep Wrangler. And we drove ourselves to our destination, which I guess you found that on the internet somewhere, you and Jim.
Yeah.
It was a package deal. So it included the wedding. It was a townhouse on the top floor, and we had, because I remember we had like an A-frame in the top of our ceiling.
Yeah.
So when we got to the facility, we were checking in the front desk just like you do with any other hotel, and they were saying, just go ahead and here's your keys. Back then I think it was like a real key. It wasn't even one of those card things.
Yeah.
But they said, go ahead and go to the liquor store and get party supplies and get some snacks.
And we were idiots. We thought, this would be cool. We're just going to sit here and watch it come in. They told us, hey, you have hurricane windows in your room. They're rated to 250 mile an hour winds. You're not going to have any problem. No big deal. Just enjoy the storm. So
Okay. So we went and got the party supplies. We had a deck of cards. We had candles that the hotel provided us because they said they will actually turn off the power on the whole island during a storm like this because they anticipate downed power lines. And they said we just turn it off for safety reasons so that people do not get electrocuted from those downed power lines. So here's some candles and here are some matches for lighting. And we're like, okay. So we got, they said that they would serve some meals and all of that. So, because the meals were included in our package,
yeah,
right?
Whole inclusive package.
Yeah. So, I talked to my mom and dad and talked to my family back home, and they were like, "Hey, we're watching the Weather Channel. You guys need to get out of there." Well, that was not an option at that point. So we just
there was no planes on islands. They took every plane off the island. There was no way to get off the island, so we were stuck.
Yep. We just decided to hunker down, have a party, enjoy some card games, and watch the storm blow in. So they anticipated it being there late that evening on that Friday. Was that the 16th? Or was that the
15th because we're getting married on the 16th.
Yes, we were supposed to get married on September 16th on Saturday at sunset out on this little point over the water. It was a beautiful area.
It was.
So we had flown in then on the 14th. So we got there or was it the 5th? It doesn't matter. But anyway, we so on Friday night, they said that they expected the whole storm to be in. Yeah, we did get there Thursday because we had to go get our paperwork. We had to go remember we had to get to the courthouse before they closed for the storm to get our marriage license. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that now.
Yeah, so we flew in on Thursday the 14th. We had to rush to the courthouse and get our marriage license and get all of the paperwork we had to have to get married and pay the fee, and all of that. And then they said, closing at noon, you guys get on back and get covered, take coverage. And so they said the storm should hit like by midnight.
And be gone and by daylight.
Yeah, and then our wedding would still be on. It was no big deal. And so, every hour these squalls would come in. And if you've ever been in a hurricane, they come in squalls, like these outer bands come in squalls. And so the outer bands would be really strong winds, really strong rain. And we think, oh my goodness, how could it even get harder than this? I mean, this is really big. And we would watch the curtains hanging in front of the sliding glass doors that were rated to 250 mile an hour winds.
Well, that was actually after dark. Before that point, we actually brought in the chaise lounges in front.
I remember that. I forgot that.
We said, we're just going to watch you come in. So we set the chaise lounges up inside, looking out the window, looking at the ocean, watching where Hurricane Marilyn was coming from. And we're lined up in these little chairs. And
we're like, hey,
it's party time.
We had our little glass and we're just having a great time. And I remember that sand hurting. The sand would fly in. It was like little needles on our skin.
So at one point, finally, we closed the sliding glass doors when it got too brutal for the wind and the sand blowing in, and we're still just have the curtains open, and we're still daylight. We're watching these squalls come in and the ocean rise and stuff blowing around, and just thinking it's a great time.
It's like, hey, y'all, watch this. Alabama people have come to the Virgin Islands for a hurricane. So we eventually, when we shut the sliding glass doors, then the curtains just kind of hung in front. We were like, we need to keep those curtains closed because that's one more barrier to keep furniture or whatever's going to come through these windows and these higher winds. So as the next band would come around, it would get stronger and stronger. And so we would watch the curtains just kind of breathe in towards us. So we knew the air's coming through those doors, and it was frightening, to say the least. And Sonia was having a hard time handling all of this. She was afraid of storms. And to be fair, they lived in over off 119 at that time.
Yeah.
And they had been literally hit by a tornado like not far before this. And so she's like, I'm terrified. She was hiding under the bed. And so, we were just like, it's okay, calm down. So we were hoping she was just going to sleep it off, but she didn't. But then as each band got stronger and stronger, we were looking at her watch, and I'm like, this is going to be the last band. You remember that? This has got to be the eye of the storm. This is going to be the last band. We are going to be done. And then it's going to be, it's going to move on. But it didn't. It's like it just stayed and stayed and stayed. And we've been through tornado warnings, plenty of them. And the noise gets loud, the wind's blowing, you think you can hear the trees outside falling, and there's just all this chaos. And then it goes away within just a few minutes. But this was like on and on for hours and hours and hours.
And I guess it was probably about, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning, and we heard a tornado. And she called the front office, and the front office says, "This is a hurricane. We don't have tornadoes here."
Yeah, I kept hearing a beeping sound. I heard a siren, and I called him, and I was like, "That's a tornado siren." He said, "We don't have tornadoes on the island, mine." And I'm like, "I hear a tornado siren." Well, I'll tell you what that siren sound was in a little bit, but that's part of the story. But so these bands just kept getting stronger and stronger. And the 4 of us, Jim, Sonia, me, and Paul, we went into the bathroom and huddled down into the tub at some point because we were that scared.
Oh, yeah. It was just blowing. The hurricane sliding glass doors were actually bowing in and hitting the curtains. I mean, it was actually bowing in 6 or 8 inches. That whole glass panel was bowing in from the gusts of the wind. So it's like, we better not just keep sitting here in these chaise lounges in front of the glass.
Well, we heard water trickling in.
Yeah, we had water running under the doors.
We were losing our roof because of that pitched roof. We were losing our roof. And this was a 2-story, so our master bedroom was upstairs. And so we had already unpacked and put our stuff in the closet. And it was all wet from the water coming in. And there was we kept hearing a flapping sound. That was the door across the hall. It was when you open our door onto the breezeway for our unit, there was a closet storage room, and that door had been torn away by the wind, except for one hinge, and so it was flapping really loud. And I remember it just driving him crazy because he's trying to sleep. He's just thinking, "I'm just going to sleep and we're going to wake up and everything's going to be fine." Yeah. And he goes out there and just pulls it the rest of the way off of the hinge and just throws it down.
Well, but unfortunately, when I yanked the rest of that door off, it almost sucked me off the balcony because the wind caught it as I had pulled it off, and I almost got pulled off the balcony. I was like, this wasn't a good idea.
No, it wasn't. So this storm, it just kept going all through the night. We could no longer call the United States or the mainland. We could no longer call the front desk. I mean, it was just terrifying. And totally it lasted until right before daylight. We felt like it was safe enough to go outside. So it was about 18 to 21 hours from best of my memory of the storm. What we later found out is that Hurricane Marilyn not only was a 1, but she stalled right outside of these islands in the Virgin Islands and just stalled, kind of like Florence just did over North Carolina and South Carolina. She just stalled and built up strength. Where Florence was kind of waning, Marilyn built strength and came in as a Category 4. And you can literally still go on Google and you can look up Hurricane Marilyn, and there's just all kinds of phenomenon regarding that particular storm, and what the facts are that the meteorologists are just bumfuzzled over. But so we get up the next morning, we're still hearing that siren go off. So we start venturing outside. It's barely daylight. You can barely see anybody. There's still some wind, still some rain, but we go downstairs, and our red Jeep Wrangler was over on its side.
And had a palm tree through it.
A palm tree was through the door and up against the horn, and that was the siren. So it was our car making that siren noise all night long. So a bunch of, other residents that were stuck there on the island too started coming out. There wasn't that many. I'd say probably 50 people there.
Yeah.
But people from all over, they started venturing out to see what the storm had left behind, and a little bit of daylight, you could see what was going on. So a bunch of guys lifted up that palm tree and pulled it out of the Jeep door, and then uprighted the Jeep, and it cranked right up.
Yep, started right up.
Couldn't believe that.
Let it sit about 10 minutes for the oil to settle back down, and turn the key, and it fired up.
That was we were so thankful. So, we're sitting here going, okay, what do we do now? This is the day we're supposed to get married. This is September 16th. We're supposed to get married at sunset on the beach. And we're looking around, and it is almost complete destruction.
And that pretty little point that was there the day earlier, jutting out into the ocean, was gone.
It was completely gone. Like the the
Just washed away.
storm surge had just taken it away. So that was gone. And so we found out, we got to figure out what's going to happen next. The hotel management, they're telling us just stay calm. We're going to help you. We're going to prepare meals for you. We're going to help you with basic supplies. We'll have some relief people coming in soon. So we just literally huddled around a transistor radio. And
they also told us don't leave the property because the locals were dressing up in camouflage, acting like
the National
Guard, but they were robbing people.
Yes. So they were looters, and they would come and steal. And if you left your unit, your facility, like your hotel room, then they could come in and steal all your stuff while you're gone. And I remember there was some guys from New York, and they were like, dude, we're going to booby trap the door. So they had like shoelaces and all kinds of stuff that they had tied, and they were tying it back and forth zigzag across the doors because many units didn't even have a door to the unit. And they had hung like beer cans and Coke cans and different vegetable cans and things that would make a loud noise, so that if you tried to get in there, like it would make a lot of noise. But,
and a lot of the units didn't even have any windows left. Those are hurricane. We didn't even think about it at the time, but those are 250-mile-an-hour hurricane glass. But that's wind. That's not pieces of board and rocks and shells and trees and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
We were fortunate; none of our windows were knocked out. We had lots of water damage, but a lot of the units didn't even have windows on them anymore. And then when the front windows got blown out, then the door on the back would get blown out. So some of those units were just destroyed. So we were blessed that
we had a place to sleep. We did have a place to sleep. It wasn't dry, but we did have a place to sleep. But I just remember wandering around the property, looking around at all the damage that was done and thinking, oh my gosh, we just survived this hurricane. Later found out that there were 13 tornadoes that were spun off of Hurricane Marilyn. So there were tornadoes in St. Thomas, after all, without a siren. And then, so listening to the radio. Oh, and by the way, these guys had not yet been invented. The only thing that we really had was Jim Hardy had was it a flip phone?
It was a flip phone, yeah.
Just a little flip phone. And we made fun of him for bringing it because it doesn't work in the island anyway. And at that point, Jim was already like phone on the hip, in the hand all the time. And we were like, dude, we're going on vacation. Leave your phone behind. I mean, it just wasn't the thing that people took a cell phone with them everywhere, but he brought it. We made fun of him, but we were so grateful that he did, because some other dude that was there vacationing he worked for cell phone company somehow, and he somehow coded the phone to pick up the cell towers that the boats use in the Navy, like in the
marina.
in the marina. So we could get calls in and out on that cell phone, which was huge. Like we were able to call home and let everybody know we were okay. We were able to have other people. They lined up to use Jim's phone. Do you remember? They were like, we didn't know what the phone bill was. We didn't know what the phone bill was going to be. We thought it was going to be, because back then you paid by the minute for a phone call. And so he was taking like, hey, $20, give me $20. You can call home. And so we had a line of people waiting to use his cell phone to call home.
Let them know they were okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's so crazy here 23 years later, how much more advanced we are with just, complete computers in our palms everywhere we go. But so Paul and Jim starts getting this idea that they are going to find us a way home because, we've spent a night there. We
haven't heard anything from anybody, nobody, no official anything had said anything to us or anything. So Jim and I jumped in the Jeep and started driving around and went to the marina. And we found a guy that had a cigarette boat that would take us to
San Juan,
Puerto Rico.
Or somewhere in Puerto Rico.
For $250 for the four of us to take us over there. And I was like, done, let's go. So we were all proud. We found our way off the island, and we come back to the room, and she's like, I'm not getting on a boat with somebody I have no idea.
You give him your $250. And besides that, it's Hurricane Marilyn that just came through. The swells are still like 10, 12 feet, right? And you're going to get on a boat, and you're going to go how far? And you're expecting him to really drop you off in Puerto Rico? And then what? What are you going to do? What if he just drops you off on the rocky coast and, you're just there and you're like, where do I go from here? No, I'm fine right here.
So I don't remember if it was the radio or the hotel told us that if Americans could get to the airport, that the next day that FEMA was flying in C-17s full of supplies, water and food, and then they were dropping their paratrooper seats on the C-17s, and they were flying Americans, if you had your identification, back to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and then you could catch a commercial flight from Puerto Rico back out of back home, from San Juan. So we're like, well, I guess we're not taking a boat. The next morning we woke up and headed to the airport. It was a mess.
Well, before we ever left the hotel, we got into this big fight with the people who worked at the hotel because they kept telling us that they had very little food.
Yeah, we're going to ration your food.
That they were rations. Like we would walk through a little line and we would get a little cup of chili, a little roll, and like a bottle of water. And that's all we had all day long. And so then Paul and Jim went back down.
We went to get some more. We went down to the kitchen. We went down to the kitchen to get some more candles that second night. And all the employees were down there, and they were eating steaks and had a big, like a birthday cake or something all set out. And they all had big, thick steaks.
Probably our wedding cake.
Probably our wedding cake they were eating. And eating steaks and salads and drinking wine.
Having a great time.
Yeah, just having a big old party in the kitchen. They've been serving us a little cup of chili and a carrot.
Mm-hmm.
So
no. So Paul and Jim got into a big fight. I mean, I thought he was going to like really beat him up because he's saying, you guys know we are, we're your guests. We're here as your guests.
We're paying for this.
You said you were going to help us. And he goes, yeah, but y'all have homes to go back to. We have nothing. And so this food's going to go bad anyway. We're just going to make sure that it gets used. And I'm like, we can make sure it gets used. I mean, you get some people hungry. Then you're like, okay, come on now. And he's, the freezers were out. The food was going to go bad, but why not serve it to all the guests? And so there was a big fight over that. And that was a problem. So finally on Monday, because that was, 16, 17, Monday's the 18th.
Yeah. Today's
the 18th. So we didn't get married. We found out that there were 12 people confirmed dead and 70 missing when we went, because of the hurricane. So our wedding was like, way down on the list of things to worry about. And so we just considered it canceled. We would deal with it later. I told Paul, I said, we'll just go home. We'll just have a little backyard wedding. It'll be fine. Thank you for trying to plan this destination wedding. It was a secret before. I didn't know until a week before we were supposed to leave that it was even happening. And so anyway, we had already tootled around trying to see, because you and Jim, when you went to go find that boat out of there, y'all said, you got to come see this because there was a Coast Guard cutter like washed up in the middle of St. Thomas.
On dry land.
All the Coast Guard employees were just sitting there because they had nothing else to do. I mean, it was
just sitting there guarding it. They had just lined up on the curb and the boat was behind them up in the street.
And countless other boats.
Yeah, it was
everywhere. Trees everywhere. I mean, you could hardly navigate through the town. Through the towns, but we were able to get to the airport on Monday. We had packed everything. And everything I had was wet and dirty except for a white t-shirt and white shorts. So that's what I put on, just knit, comfortable white t-shirt, white shorts. And my shoes were wet and they were rubbing blisters on my feet. And so the closet that was across the hall from our unit that he had ripped the door off, that was kind of a lost and found closet. And there was a pair of like neon green and blue dive booties in there, like what you would put on before you put on your flippers, your fins. And they were my size. And so I put those on because they were dry and they fit me, and my shoes didn't. They were wet and it was awful. So here I go walking up to the airport. They, just to get to the airport. So we're being assigned in groups. Imagine this airport, it's damaged. There's, signs hanging all wonky and, debris everywhere, planes upside down, just chaos. And so there are people telling us, get in these lines. They're dividing us, counting us off and making us stand in line. We don't know why we're in line, and it's hot. It's St. Thomas in September. It was hot. And me and my little redheaded self is getting blistered. So we're sitting there, and Paul said, you know what? We came here to get married, and I'm just not leaving until we're married. And I said, Oh no, really. We can just do that. We can just do something when we get home. Sonia said something really profound, and I can't say it on Facebook Live. But she basically said, "That's not a good idea, Paul," in about 2 words.
Call me a couple names.
So, but
I said, hey, there has to be a preacher here. I mean, surely there's somebody here that can marry us.
Well, we're looking around. So while we're sitting in this line, planes are coming in, people are getting off. Teams of people, and you're seeing like all wearing one shirt, colored shirt that says disaster relief, First Baptist Association, disaster relief. So we're thinking, these are churches that are coming here. There's pastors in there somewhere. Somebody can marry us. And I said, if you really think that you can find somebody that is going to put this as a priority when they're trying to rescue people from this devastated island, knock yourself out. Bye-bye. So he gets up and walks off. I'm like, okay, I'm fine. We're just going to sit here. And I'm just like, he's not going to find anybody. We'll just go home. So I'm just like, girl, we'll do this. We'll just have a little wedding at home. So where did you go?
I just went all through the airport and just asked anybody if they knew anybody that could, perform a wedding, and if there was a preacher or anything around, and went all through, and nobody knew of anybody. And so I came back to where they were at, kind of my tail between my legs. I was like, well, I can't find anybody. So,
told you. I told you wouldn't find anybody.
So
I didn't say that, though.
We're just waiting to get on our plane, and they already checked all our IDs and passports and all that stuff, and they put a red X in our hands, and I guess that meant they're okay to.
Yeah, we were cleared.
We cleared that was our boarding pass, I guess, to get onto the C-17. So we're sitting there, and then we hear somebody hollering coming through the airport, and it's.
Well, our group had moved from out of the sun and into the terminal. So that meant you're getting close, like you're the next group to get on another plane. And like you said, they're bringing in the C-130s? C-17s. They're bringing those in. They're offloading
water,
pallets full of food, relief supplies, water, medical supplies, and teams of people are just going with the pallets. And they're being deployed into all of their areas that they do in a disastrous plan, right? So we're sitting in the terminal, and we're like, wah, 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 wah. We keep hearing this like announcement. I'm like, shh, what are those people saying? So we turn around, and there's these men, like 6 or 8 of them, walking through the terminal going, whoa, and we're like, what are they saying? So we start listening. Where's the couple that wanted to get married?
And 3 or 4 of the guys are in suits and ties. And we're like, that's weird.
Yeah. And then the rest are F-E-M-A.
No, I didn't even see that.
F-E-M-A. Oh, I did. I was like, oh my gosh. and so Paul's like, oh, over here. And I'm going, there must be somebody else here that's wanting to get married. This is probably not us that they're coming for. And so sure enough, they come over there, and this guy introduces himself to Paul, and he said, can I see your paperwork? And tell me your story. We came here to help. What happened? And he said, well, we came here to get married, and then Hurricane Marilyn hit, and then we didn't get to have a wedding. And so now we're going back home and we're not married. And he goes, well, I can marry you. I used to be a judge in Yale County, Arkansas, and I can marry you. And Paul said, well, are you a Christian? And he goes, well, yeah. He said, I was a deacon in the First Baptist Church. Is that okay?
First Baptist Church of Arkansas.
And he said, yeah, that'll do. And so he said, well, my people would like to see your paperwork. Do you have everything in order for your marriage license? And we said, yeah. So we had this folder. We pull it out. And Sonia's like, oh my gosh, you're about to get married. And so I pull out this little thing that I was going to wear on my head, like a little veil, little wreath thing on my head, pull it out, stuck it on my head. I pulled out my bouquet, and here I am in my white t-shirt, white shorts, my neon booties. I have my headpiece on, and I have my bouquet.
Hadn't had a shower or a bath in 3 or 4 days.
No, it was,
none of us.
It was bad. We were all kind of we had our own aromatherapy at that time. But he looked over the papers and said, everything looks good, Jimmy Lee, just go on with it. And
yeah.
So he said, bear with me. I haven't done one of these in a long time, so I'll try to remember how the vows go. And literally people start gathering around like they're saying, hey, we're about to have a wedding over here. Y'all come watch. So there's all these people around, and we're just still like, oh, I can't believe this is this really happen? Is this what we want to do? Is this how this is going to end? I mean, is this what we designed? And so he kind of goes through and does the wedding vows, and we kiss, and he pronounces us man and wife, and we get all these cheers. All these people are clapping, and there's cameras going off, and just cheers, and then they're saying, come on, you got to get on your plane, you're next, come on. And so we didn't even have time to even shake hands and figure out what just happened. So we ran and we do what we're supposed to do, because we are not missing that plane to get back to Birmingham at all. I mean, we're out of there, right? So we grab our luggage, where 4 of us are running. We go and we jump in this big hull of a body of an airplane, and there's these little slings that look kind of like an Eno, but a seat. And we sit down, and they're like saying, buckle up. And this guy's coming by, and he's got this big camera. Do you remember him? He's the one that is videoing. He was an Associated Press cameraman. We didn't know that.
Yeah.
But he's coming around and he's going, tell us about your experience with Hurricane Marilyn. And Paul goes, we just got married. And I'm like, yeah, we did. We came here. Somebody just married us. And we just sat down. And so anyway, we later find out that he was with the Associated Press, and he was doing an interview for the Weather Channel.
Yeah. And that interview still shows up about once a year. We get a phone call or something from somebody. Hey, I just saw you on the Weather Channel. And it's us sitting on that C-17, them interviewing us about the hurricane and the damage and the wedding and all that. So that thing comes around about once a year. We get somebody telling us about that.
Yes, it was hilarious. So, at that time we had no idea who he was. There was no real big internet. I mean, we'd had dial-up AOL, right? And so we get flown into San Juan. Oh, look, I hear an airplane.
Yeah.
How ironic.
And so we get off the airplane. They shuttle us off into a room. They got Kentucky Fried Chicken there. So we had our first warm meal in probably 4 days, I guess. And, told us, hey, we've already got this stuff booked for you to fly back to Birmingham. And by this time, I don't know, it's
late, because we got the last flight from Atlanta. Well, we got on a flight from San Juan to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then they told us in Atlanta, there's one flight right now with spots on it available for you, but it's the last flight to Birmingham, or you won't get home tonight. Well, if you've ever been to the Atlanta airport, you know how many terminals they have and how many trains run back and forth. We were just in the Atlanta airport this weekend, and I said, do you remember 23 years ago we came through here and these trains were shut down because the airport they weren't many passengers. That whole terminal was shut down. So we didn't have the trains to take us from terminal to terminal. They were closed for the night. We had to sprint all the way to the terminal we needed to get to.
Glad to do it. Wanted to get home.
It was grab your suitcase like this and run. And we were just running for our lives. And we ran, and they were holding the plane for us. We got in, and I had been holding it up pretty good emotionally until this moment. We get in, and all these people are just looking at us as we're walking on the plane like, look what the cat just drug.
Because we smelled.
We were bad.
It wasn't good.
We were bad, like homeless people. They come, and they're just looking at us, and I said, oh, what's the matter with you? Have you not ever seen somebody that's been through a hurricane before? And I just sat down and just put my hand over my head over my hands on the seat in front of me and just bawled, let it all out. I could not hold it back anymore. It was like, finally, we're going to get back home.
Yep. So we get to Birmingham, get in our car, come home, and I don't know, it's after midnight. It's probably 1 or 2 in the morning. We just, came in, got a shower, grabbed a quick bite, jumped in bed, just wanted to get some rest. So we wake up the next day and check the answering machine, and it's blinking like crazy. Back then he had an actual answering machine, and we check it, and it's all these news stations.
Well, at that point, we didn't even check the answering machine. Remember, I got up and I cooked for us because we were still starving. And I made biscuits and gravy and bacon and sausage and eggs. I mean, I pulled everything out of the fridge and made everything we could eat. We were so hungry.
That's right. We got a phone call, didn't we?
And we were sitting there eating, just gobbling it up, and the phone rang. And this guy goes, hey, is this Tina? And I said, yes. And he goes, this is so-and-so with Channel 13 in Birmingham. We want to come out and talk to you about your wedding. Is that okay? And I'm like, how do you know about my wedding? How do you know? And he goes, ma'am, you're on page 2 of the USA Today. Have you not read it yet? And I said, no, we don't take the USA Today. I mean, we didn't even take the Birmingham News at that point. So, I mean, how would we know that we were on there? And we didn't have the internet. I mean, we literally had no idea. And that's when the answer machine, we
They
started
checked
noticing.
the answer machine, and there was a bunch of message on there from different stations all over the country. Wanted to interview us.
So what we pieced together is that the man who married us in the airport, what was left of it, was the director of FEMA. His name is James Lee Witt. He was serving under the Clinton administration, and during his term in the White House was the costliest natural disaster budget we have ever seen as a nation during 1995. So we were part of that. But he was there, and he was about to do a press conference back to the United States to report from St. Thomas and all the damage from Hurricane Marilyn. So he had an entourage of people with him from FEMA, from the law offices there at the White House, from the Associated Press. And so literally we intersected that press conference with our wedding. And so all of those AP people had all of it on film, and little did we know, and we still have never seen all of the footage.
Never have seen the video.
We've gotten a lot of good pictures that the staff photographers for FEMA had gotten for us and sent to us, but we have not seen actual footage of the wedding. So FYI, if anybody knows anyone that was with the AP in 1995, we would love to have a copy of that. I have a free bottle of frankincense for you if you get that for me. That'd be awesome. We had intersected that whole press conference, and that's why, the Associated Press, if you know anything about how the news works, when something hits the AP and people have some news spots to fill and it's interesting, they pull it off the AP and they put it on to their
newspaper, on the radio show, or whatever. We were actually on G. Gordon Liddy. I didn't hear it, but G. Gordon Liddy picked it up and talked about it. USA Today, all the Birmingham papers. It was news all over.
So it was crazy. I mean, for a long time, every day we got calls. We were on the Mark and Brian radio show. Are they even still around, Mark and Brian?
I'm sure they're still around.
They were awesome. Great radio duet. Did the morning show radio. We were on, like you said, G. Gordon Liddy. I mean, just tons and tons of places and news, the outlets, they told our story. And so then one day I come in from work, and Paul had a home office at that time too. And I walk in the office and he goes, "You are never going to believe who called today to want to talk to us about our wedding." And I said, "Who?" And he said, "The producers at Oprah Winfrey." And I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And he said, "Yeah, they want us to come on a show that they call Disastrous Weddings, and they want to talk to us." Well, we were in the middle of a business thing that had gone south that we
repossessed.
We had held a mortgage for this business, and then this lady was defaulting on it, and then we were having to go to court because she was filing bankruptcy, and so we had a court date, and it was not fun. And we had to turn down Oprah Winfrey for this court date, right? So it was so painful to have to do that, but there was no way around it. So the producer told you, "Hey, we'll file it away. This is a great story. Maybe we'll do another show like this." So sure enough, the following February, there was, we got another call, and they said that show was so popular on Disastrous Weddings, we decided to do a remake and have a whole nother set of disastrous wedding couples on this show, and we want you to come. So it was February, and he needed us to get him as many pictures and news articles and all that as possible, so that they could, put together a little entourage, a little, a story before our story. And he said, "Can you FedEx it today?" Well, we were in the middle of an ice storm, and all the highways were shut down in Alabama because it never snows and ices here. And when it does, they shut everything down. But I was able to get to the FedEx store in Hoover and get that package sent off to them. And then they had us come up. I think it was Valentine's Day week that we were there. And so they picked us up at the airport in a limousine and took us to this hotel. And we go to the studio, which was nothing like what we thought it would be. It was just in a warehouse district.
Basically, yeah.
In Chicago. And we walk in, and these two Springer Spaniels come greeting us. That was Oprah's dogs. This is so surreal, right? So we go into this green room, and there's all these other couples in there that had disastrous weddings, and these producers just keep coming and micing everybody up and talking to them about what they're going to expect, except us. They didn't tell us nothing,
They
did
didn't tell
they?
us anything. So we're like, we're here.
Okay, well, we'll just follow the instructions of whenever we're told, and we'll just do what we're supposed to do. So they filed us out of the studio, the green room, into the studio, and sit us down in the little audience. This is way back when Oprah had like a live audience, and it was a long time ago, 23 years to be exact, 22 years. But so she gets to us, and she says that she had a friend that wanted to give us a personal weather forecast. And so we turned our attention up to this big screen on the stage, and there is Spencer Christian. He's this adorable black guy that used to be on GMA, Good Morning America, doing the weather back then. So if you're too young to remember that, anyway, Spencer Christian is up on the screen, and he goes, "Oh, Paul and Tina, Hurricane Marilyn, oh my gosh, that was a bad one." He said, "I can guarantee you that if you want to go to Mexico, like say this time of the year, no threat of a hurricane." So
yeah, he's giving us a personal forecast, and we're like, okay, not thinking anything of it, thinking he's probably in New York and it's just simulcast. So then he comes around from a behind stage with an envelope and brings an envelope over
with a 5-piece mariachi band. A Mexican mariachi band.
Yeah.
And so he comes up and he puts this sombrero on Paul's head. And Paul has to have custom fit hats.
It's not that bad, but I have a big head.
He does. And so this sombrero is sitting way up here. And I think they put one on me, and there's all these mariachi band. And so Oprah's telling us that we're going to Oaxaca, Mexico, to Huatulco.
All expenses paid.
All expenses paid, yeah. So we took that trip in May, I think. And it was a second honeymoon, and the best trip ever.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. We had our own pool right outside our room. Like, you open your sunglass door and you get in your own pool.
Apparently, this is where Oprah and the stars vacation, because it's off to the side. It wasn't popular back then, and they could go there and not get recognized and all that, but it was gorgeous. It was unbelievable.
Yes, and we rented a car, and we went to that Zihuatanejo beach that we'd see. What's that, Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we went to Zihuatanejo. That was pretty cool. But
that was before Shawshank. They took after us.
Yeah. Yeah, when we saw the movie, we were like, oh my gosh, we've been to that beach. So yeah, that's our story. And there's a little more. So when Natalie was born in 98, we sent a birth announcement to James Lee Witt, and he sent us a congratulations card and said that she was born on his birthday. So that was kind of cool. And we kind of lost touch with him. We kept in touch with him with Christmas cards and stuff.
And he told us, anytime you want to come to Washington, D.C., I'll hook you up on tours, come by the office and all that. So I guess she was, about a year old?
She was about 6 months old, because I was carrying her in a little front carrier.
So we went up there, and he got us to the White House tour and showed us all his offices, and it was kind of cool and he's a super great guy.
Yes, he is. And he went on to write a book, Stronger in the Broken Places, and he sent us an autographed copy of it. And he, last I heard, had a business. I think there was an Atlanta office and Arkansas office that specializes in helping corporations prepare for disasters. So, like, of course, post 9/11, I mean, corporations, it's just part of their standard operating procedures and policy and procedures is to have, like, in case of real big problems like what happened at 9/11 or an earthquake or a hurricane, that they have things in place for what the protocol is going to be when that happens. So we've lost touch with him. We need to find him.
Yeah, I was just thinking about we probably should have looked for his Facebook and tagged him in this. So
well, we may have to do that. I did find he had a fan page back a few years ago. I checked, and there was just a celebrity fan page on Facebook, but I don't think it's manned very much because I left a message and he never got back with me. So I guess it's because he doesn't check it very much. But anyhow, that's our wedding story. So every time it's hurricane season, we're like, oh yeah, it's almost our anniversary. And we also decided that we would not book any more trips like to the tropics during hurricane season, because we still seem to be magnets for bad weather. And we've been on several things that, like we're literally ruined because we were there. I think we've got like some mojo on us or something. So we don't ask us to go on a cruise or to the islands because you don't want to have bad weather by having us there. So anyway, we can't see most of your comments. I can see how people are joining us, and I can see a couple little comments, but I can't see questions or anything like that. So I'm going to come back and answer questions and kind of hang out and mingle with you guys for a little bit tonight. You have anything else to say?
Yeah.
He didn't want to do this, but
I didn't.
I think he's glad he did.
Oh yeah.
Are y'all glad he did? I think you are. Okay. All right. Y'all have a great night. I hope that the rest of this hurricane season is going to be very calm and uneventful. So we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.